Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech. An iOS 26.4 RC or release candidate released to developers and public beta testers this week, and iOS 26.3.1a released to the public earlier this week as well. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26.4 RC is out. What's new video. We'll talk about the latest Apple news, we'll also talk about some new features, and we'll talk about the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where at the time of this video there's over 10,000 votes and 129 comments. I've gone over all the comments to determine what the update is like for most people, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, Apple has issued a new support document this week encouraging users on older devices to update to protect data on their iPhone. And we're talking about much older devices. Apple says that devices with iOS 13 and iOS 14 must update to iOS 15 to receive protection against recent vulnerabilities. You'll see here on their support document that it says devices with iOS 13 or iOS 14 must update to iOS 15 to receive these protections and will receive an additional alert to install a critical security update in the next few days. So we can expect that as well. So if you're on one of the older devices supporting that version of iOS, be sure to update to patch that critical security vulnerability. Apple is continuing its 50-year anniversary and recently had events in New York City, China, and South Korea. According to Mac Rumors, the next countries with Apple celebrations will be Canada, France, Thailand, and Australia. So this looks like this could be for months going on and on, depending on what Apple decides to do. But on April 1st, Apple turns 50 years old, so we're seeing this more and more. Tim Cook has been rumored to be retiring, but in a recent interview with Good Morning America, Tim Cook says that the reports that he wants to step back is just a rumor. However, he did not say he wouldn't be stepping down soon, but he also didn't deny it as well. So we'll have to wait and see if he maybe sort of steps back toward the end of the year, or maybe the following year, or within the next 5 years. We just don't know at this point. Now, Hermes released a few new MagSafe chargers with extraordinary pricing this week. If we take a look at their website, you'll see their Paddock Solo charger comes in at $1,250, and based off the information I could find, it charges at around 20 watts or so. They have a much more expensive charger, however. You'll see here for $5,150, it's the Paddock Duo charger and Grand Paddock case. So it comes with a case, of course Hermes leather, but you'll see a dual charger that charges a watch and an iPhone or whatever you set on it there, and again, over $5,000. Basically, you could get a new Studio Display XDR and a MacBook Air for around that price. So this is something that I'm not sure a whole lot of people will buy, but it's available now, along with a few other accessories as well. Apple has been going back and forth for years with Masimo over its blood oxygen sensor patent, to the point where newer watches didn't include the actual feature even though it still had the sensor, and Apple came up with a workaround where it measures it on the watch and then actually reports it in the Health app. So you can measure blood oxygen here. If we go into it, again it's back in Vitals, and under blood oxygen you'll see that it reports it still in the Health app. So this is something that's a workaround, and recently an ITC judge or International Trade Commission judge had said that the workaround does not infringe on Masimo patents. So this is a win for Apple, and it looks like it's here to stay for now. Apple also launched a new health feature in China, or in mainland China. The AFib history feature for Apple Watch was launched this past week. You can see Apple's announcement about it here, so it's available now in China. Apple said on Friday that it hit a new record for Mac sales for first-time Mac customers. You can see Tim Cook announced it, where Mac just had its best launch week ever for first-time Mac customers. We love seeing the enthusiasm. So this is great to hear, and I'm seeing a lot of MacBook Neos sold out nearby, at least for in-store pickup. So if we go to the Apple Store site, and you'll see that the MacBook Neo with Touch ID, which is the 512GB option, is now pushed back to Tuesday, April 4th for in-store pickup. It seems to mostly be the Touch ID models that are sold out, but you can get it delivered from different sites such as Amazon if you want it very soon. As far as new features this week, well, the App Store account page has a couple new settings I didn't mention in the What's New video. So if we go to my account settings here, and at the bottom of settings in the App Store, you'll now see App Store settings and family settings. So that's something that's new. Also, if you're in the UK, it seems more and more people are getting the age verification prompt. However, it still seems to be a bit problematic. So, while technically Apple has said this was a bug earlier on, it seems like it's still popping up in the UK. There's a few app updates worth mentioning, and the first one was updated a few weeks ago, and that's Apple Sports, where it says follow the men's and women's NCAA tournaments in real time with brackets showcasing matchups and results at glance for each round, so you can keep up with every game. It says fans in Latin America and the Caribbean can now follow their favorite leagues and teams in Apple Sports, and there's additional updates as well. You can see the NCAA tournament here for both men's and women's as well. So if you want to follow those are now available, and it's available in more countries, it seems. Also, WhatsApp was updated with a new profile tab, so instead of just settings, this is in preparation for upcoming multi-account support. Some people already have that, some don't, but this is why they've added that. Now, Perplexity has been updated to now access Apple Health if you want to allow it. So if we go into Safari here, you'll see an announcement about it where it says introducing Perplexity Health. So if you want to tie that to Apple Health, you can get suggestions about medical questions you might have, but just keep in mind this doesn't replace your doctor, but it's available and it was published on March 19th. So a couple of days ago, you were able to do this, and if you want to check it out, it's now available. I wanted to share a weekly iOS tip, as I've been doing that every week now, and this week there's one that you may already know, but you may need to switch back since iOS 26.4 RC changed it for many people. And that specifically has to do with smooth scrolling within Safari. You can actually force it to not only do 60 frames per second, but on phones that support ProMotion, you can have it scroll very smoothly, and you'll see that here. However, you need to turn a feature off in Safari. So we'll jump right into the settings using a shortcut I have here. I'll link that in the description, but we're right into the Safari settings, and within that, scroll to the bottom, go to Advanced, scroll again to the bottom, go to Feature Flags, and now sort alphabetically and go down to P. So we're going to go all the way down to where it says P and where it says Prefer Page Rendering Updates near 60 frames per second. Turn that off and it will speed everything up and make it super smooth. So make sure that's off. It was turned back on by default with iOS 26.4 RC. Now this week with iPhone 17 Pro Max, we keep hearing more and more about the iPhone 18 Pro not really changing a whole lot this year. However, with the 17 Pro Max, it's already been 6 months. So I'll be talking about that soon in a future video, but I've been using it on and off for 6 months. I've used each color as well, and I've also used the iPhone Air. So I've really stuck with the iPhone 17 Pro Max for now, and I'm really enjoying it more and more day to day. But let me know which phone you're using this year and your experience as well. And of course, I'll have a video about that very soon. Now, as far as releases this week, Apple pushed out their first background security improvement. We hadn't seen this other than in beta, and they pushed it out to the public. It's odd that they pushed it out so quickly before we see the release of iOS 26.4, but if you're not seeing it already, you can go into your settings, go down to Privacy and Security, not Software Update this time, then scroll all the way to the bottom and you'll see background security improvements. Go in here, give it a moment, and it will show up on its own, and you'll see iOS 26.3.1a. You can go ahead and install it, and you can also uninstall it like I showed on this device in the video. So this also patches something very critical, so I would recommend it, but just keep in mind that you can uninstall it if you don't want it. So that's great to see, and I hope we see uninstall with many new versions if it's causing issues for people, but that's something we only see with those background security improvements. Apple also is planning to release iOS 26.4. So far, we haven't seen a 26.4 RC2, and based on what we've had in the past, I would expect a public release around the 23rd. Usually on a Monday is when they release it. However, this has changed from time to time, but we could see it as soon as the 23rd. If there's additional issues, we could see an RC2 then, and then another release maybe later in the week. So that's what I would expect there. Then iOS 26.5 Beta 1 after that, and maybe we'll finally see Apple Intelligence with Siri 2.0. We've seen Apple Intelligence, most of it's there, but we haven't seen Siri 2.0 with any integration. So maybe we'll see the first versions there, but we don't know that for sure. Of course, we expect iOS 27 in early June to be shown with Beta 1 for the first time on June 8th, or sometime around that with WWDC 2026 or the Worldwide Developer Conference. So that's what we expect there. I'm looking forward to trying out that new Siri. However, I'm not convinced it's going to be anything I'll use regularly, but that's sort of the best AI updates, where they sort of work in the background, help you out when needed. Now, as far as AirPods Pro 3 this week, again, I've been using them regularly. However, I have been using some other earbuds as well, but AirPods Pro 3 seem to be pretty good. Switching works pretty well back and forth, no real issues there, with the exception of switching to a Mac after I took a phone call. I had to manually connect them. Other than that, I've had no issues, no degradation. Everything seems to be working very well. And as far as connectivity, it seems to be good on my iPhone as well. You'll see I have more bars than I typically do. However, typically modem updates will just help with overall connectivity, not necessarily more bars, as that's dependent on many different factors. But it does seem to be staying connected better. Wi-Fi isn't dropping. It's not automatically switching back and forth. So it seems like it's been fixed in 26.4 so far. When it comes to the experience of iOS 18.7.7 RC, people have installed that. However, I'm not able to install that unless it's on an older device. Apple is only making it available on iPhone XR, XS, and XS Max, and I don't want to upgrade this one as I actually have it on an older version of iOS, as I like to keep sort of track of all the older ones through the new ones as well. So you can install it if you have a XS, XR, or XS Max. Other than that, you can't use it. So unfortunately, there's no way. However, iOS 26.4 has been much better, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but also iOS 26.3.1, the overall experience seems to be good for most people. In fact, it's good on older phones as well. Super smooth, the scrolling is great, and you'll see here, just scrolling back and forth, the performance is good. Apple keeps focusing on older devices, it seems a little bit more now as well. So the experience has definitely improved, even on 26.3.1. 26.3.1a is the same thing, as it's just a security patch, so no real changes there. However, some people did still say they're having lag when scrolling sometimes, and also CarPlay is disconnecting for some people, but it seems to be specific maybe to Mercedes-Benz and GM cars. Everyone else seems like it's fixed for them, so we'll have to wait and see if 26.4 does that as well. Also, some people are still reporting an alarm bug. I haven't seen it myself, but some people do report it on 26.3.1, but I haven't had a single report or a single issue on 26.4. But the first thing is, Apple finally listened, and they finally fixed the keyboard. It's super smooth and fast, so if we go into notes, on the iOS 26.4 experience, the keyboard is great, so this is iOS 26.4 RC on iPhone 17 Pro Max. We'll type that, and you'll see it's nice and smooth. It's keeping up. It's not making errors when I type a letter. It seems like they've really fixed this issue even on older devices as well. So they finally listened. It maybe just took them a while to implement it, figure out what was causing it, and they've fixed it and refined it. So this is great to see. They've finally fixed it, and it's much better. Also, a few people have said that music search has been fixed. Specifically, when you go into search, if you turn off Apple Music, sometimes maybe if you wanted to search your library, it would default back to Apple Music. Now it sticks on library. For example, if I search for maybe NF here, you'll see it searches. If I go back out, go back in, we'll cancel search, go back in, it's staying on library instead of defaulting back to Apple Music. So that's great to see. Also, camera lag has been fixed. Many people report that even after recording video for maybe 10 minutes or more, it's still nice and fast and smooth. And also connectivity, as I mentioned before, is much better, especially with Wi-Fi drops. On 26.4 RC, the UI is super smooth as well. It seems like they've fixed ProMotion, and everyone seems to be reporting great things. The few issues remaining seem to be the UK verification bug, where sometimes it fails consistently and then locks the user into a restricted under 18 mode. So that's definitely an issue for some. Also, there's another bug that's odd when you add a contact. So maybe we go into phone and add a contact. So if we go to add a contact, after we're adding them and we want to add a phone number, we'll go in here. You'll see that the keyboard, or the buttons really for the number pad here, are not centered. They're off to the left here. It's a little bit of a UI bug. Probably Apple isn't aware, so be sure to report that in feedback if you haven't already. But you'll see it's justified to the left a little bit instead of being centered. So that's a little odd. But the UI is generally smooth for everyone, and Apple CarPlay stopped connecting after the RC for one user. However, it's been flawless for me on this iPhone. Connecting to my car, it would typically connect, disconnect, and then reconnect. It's been flawless, no issues whatsoever, working great. I just wish they would add pinch to zoom to it, then it would be great. But other than that, it seems to be working like you would expect. One other thing I wanted to mention is the wallpaper bug is not fixed. You can see how vibrant and sort of saturated it is here. Swipe home and it desaturates. Again, it gets very vibrant, specifically around the sun here. Swipe home and it desaturates a bit. It may be more subtle than it was before, but definitely an issue, and I really hope they fix this maybe in the next update. Of course, it's not as critical as the keyboard bug, but something we would like to finally see fixed. As far as overall performance, well, like I mentioned already, everything seems to be mostly smooth. Unlocking the phone, swiping up, scrolling, that's when it's laggy. That's on or off, hit or miss for me, but other than that, you'll see now it's sped up. It takes a second to sort of maybe speed up the processor for some reason. Again, it's doing it again. It's when you leave it for a second and then go back in. So it's only on the 17 Pro Max for me. I don't see it on the iPad, but definitely an odd bug. Other than that, it's been mostly perfect at this point for me. Zero crashes, zero issues. A few have said that they've had settings or freezes crash for them in specific apps, but not the settings itself. So overall, it seems like it's much better. much more fluid, faster, a little bit of lag from time to time. So hopefully they iron that out. They finally fixed the keyboard, so they'll probably move on to that next. When it comes to overall heat and thermals, it seems to be a little bit better. Now, it's normal for your phone to heat up if it's processing and working hard, but this time around it seems like they've changed something to make it a little bit cooler. Even with the vapor chamber, it seems cooler than normal. I showed that in the initial 26.4 RC is out video, and it seems to be true now. But let's go ahead and run benchmarks. I haven't run them since that video, so let's run it here, and we'll compare it with Beta 4 as well. If we take a look at iOS 26.4 RC on the 17 Pro Max, we're usually right around 36 degrees Celsius, up to 37 here. And then on the 17 Pro Max running iOS 26.4 Beta 4, right around 35 degrees Celsius. Now keep in mind, it is a little bit hotter ambient temperature here than it was where I recorded the RC video. So it's going to be a little bit warmer, but very normal, doesn't feel hot to the touch. And of course, let's let benchmarks finish and take a look at them. So it's almost complete. Let them finish here in just a second, and we'll see what we've got. So we have 3,733 for single core, 9,647 for multi-core. It's a little bit higher for multi-core than Beta 4, as you'll see on the left, and a little bit lower for single core. This can vary greatly depending on what's going on, how long you've had the device on. You'll see it was a little bit better right after I installed it. If I run it a few different times, you'll see it bump up to that, but it's well within the margin of error, and typically it's nice and fast. But that might be why we have a little bit more stuttering on mine today while something's going on in the background, but we just don't know at this point. Now, when it comes to battery life, let's first take a look at iOS 26.3.1. So thanks to Abhishek for sending this in. Thanks for consistency, seeing this every week. Back to back shows you different battery life. And this is on iOS 26.3.1 using an iPhone 16e with 99% battery health set to 100% charge limit. So we had 6 hours and 32 minutes of screen on time, 2 hours and 44 minutes of screen off time using 99% of the battery. So definitely better than most expect out of that phone. But overall, I think we've seen a little bit better there, but it could still be processing in the background. When it comes to iOS 26.4 RC, let's take a look at battery here. We'll go to battery health. I've been using it full time, and I have 100% capacity with 42 cycles. If we go back here, go to battery usage, you'll see today 2 hours and 42 minutes of screen active time, 1 hour and 25 minutes of screen idle time, and only 32% used. This is much better than I typically see. If we go back a day, 2 hours and 8 minutes, it seems like it's improving more and more. So 4 hours and 22 minutes of screen active time using 64% of the battery. It's finally ramping up for me and getting much better. So I definitely see an improvement here. And based off what you had to say in the YouTube community poll, iOS 26.3.1 and 26.3.1a, 67% say that it has good or better battery life than before. However, with iOS 26.4, again, Apple listened here, as 100% of the comments say battery on iPhone is better or great compared to previous versions with iOS 26.4 RC. So it looks like they're really focusing on refinement, and I think we'll see even more of this with iOS 27. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.4, definitely once it releases to the public if you're not running the betas. If you are running the betas, install the RC if you haven't already, and that could be the final release. If it's not, Apple will just push an update once it's out, and then if you don't want beta updates after that, then you can turn them off. But typically, if you just go into your settings and leave it where it is for now, leave it on beta, even if it's not, sometimes they'll just push an update now. So even if you don't want it on betas, you could turn it off now. You'll see an update if there is a new build number when it comes out to the public. So that's what we can expect there. When it comes to overall storage, let's take a look between Beta 4 and the RC. Now, when you install an update, it overwrites the other one, unless it needs additional space for more features or something like that. It's not adding to the storage already used. But if we go to General and iPhone Storage, scroll to the bottom, you'll see that on the left, Beta 4 is 21.92 gigabytes. On the right is the RC at 21.76 gigabytes. So the RC is taking up a little bit less, thanks mostly to Apple Intelligence that's less for me for some reason, but you'll see the iOS update is very similar. So no real issues there. And when it comes to system data, this varies, and I tell people you really shouldn't pay attention to this unless it's using so much data that you can't install or update apps. So this will go up and down as needed. It's system cache and other things. So it should go up. Typically it could go up to 60 gigabytes or so, come back down, but it just depends what it's doing. But as far as the overall experience and what you had to say, let's take a look at some of your comments now. Ashley88P said, iOS 26.3.1 is brilliant on my iPhone 17. CarPlay is finally fixed and there hasn't been any disconnects. I still get visual bugs from time to time. Battery life is great, easily getting me through the day with 6 to 8 hours of screen on time. Alex27951 said, I'm on iOS 26.4 RC on 16 Pro Max. Wonderful experience and update as well, even on the battery life as well, and on the iPad Pro M4 with cellular, longer battery life. Lokman Syed says, iOS 26.4 RC has been really amazing. The best version I've had since iOS 18. ProMotion is incredibly smooth. I don't know what Apple has done with this version. Battery life feels like something I haven't had for a very long time now, as this is the best yet. There are some bugs and a few lags, but nothing that is too annoying. Really happy that they finally fixed the keyboard bug as well. Can't wait for the final release. Hacked0813 said, iOS 26.4 RC on my iPhone 16. The performance is pretty snappy after it finished processing in the background after 1 to 3 hours. Most of the bugs I've had are gone and the keyboard bug is fixed. I don't notice occasional lag when I go to different pages, switching between apps, swiping to the home screen, and I don't have adaptive power or low power mode on for this. The phone might get warm when it's at its peak brightness and may pull down the brightness in hot weather, like we're having in California. I ran benchmarks after a day and I got 3,417 for single core and 8,646 for multi-core. Battery life is decent, and by the time I get home, I usually have around 20% of my battery life remaining. Overall, it's pretty good for my daily driver. Chris Speed CH6012 said, iOS 26.4 RC seems to be a lot smoother than iOS 26.3.1 on my iPhone 15 Pro Max. This might be the most stable version since iOS 26. Hectoreg Jesgauda said, iOS 26.4 RC is superb on my 17 Pro Max. Superb battery backup and smoothest updates ever. One thing I wanted to mention about the overall lag I was experiencing on this iPhone, I think has to do with adaptive power. I've seen that from time to time. So if we go back here, go to battery, we have adaptive power mode enabled. I've had that on the whole time. Let me turn it off and see if it's actually smooth this time around. So it seems smooth here. Let me unlock it. And again, seems much smoother. So maybe it's keeping the processor ramped up a little bit more than where it typically would. So I'll try that for a few days and see if it really smooths it out. Try it for yourself and see if it helps. Now, when it comes to iOS 26.3.1a, it's the standard update at this point. I would currently give it a B-. With the current release, its background security improvement is decent and just adds security to an already okay update. However, there are still some issues with battery, stutter, and connectivity issues for some, and the update seems inconsistent between many of the comments where some have a great experience and others do not. However, iOS 26.4 seems to resolve this issue. I'd say this is a very encouraging update. I'd give it an A- at this point, where the community is overwhelmingly happy with the iOS 26.4 update. It has great performance, ProMotion is smooth other than the lag I showed here, and battery life, even on older models, seems to be much better. While the update is not flawless, this is easily the most stable and best version of iOS 26 yet, and has me very encouraged for what would be next. So hopefully we see more and more of this. And so that's everything with iOS 26.3.1a and iOS 26.4 RC. I'm looking forward to the public release, and whatever Apple has next hopefully is much, much better than even this version. I'm seeing big improvements from them, and I'm finally happy to say that they seem to be getting much, much better and listening to many of our complaints. Let me know your overall iOS 26 experience in the comments below, and of course I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.